Hello everyone, welcome to another Bitcoin tutorial. In today's video I'm going to show you how to mine Bitcoin at home and to help combat the Bitcoin mining centralization problem. If you're not familiar with that problem, it kind of stems from the fact that because the global hash rate has gotten so large and the block rate is only one block every 10 minutes, that means that it takes a long time if you're mining to actually get a block if you're mining just by yourself. And so to solve that problem, people get together in a pool. It's sort of like, if you go out and buy a lottery ticket, the chances of you winning the lottery are pretty low, so you have to buy a lot of tickets. Or another option is to get a bunch of people together and they all buy tickets, and then if any one of them win, they share the winnings with everybody else in the pool. That's kind of how Bitcoin mining pools work. So basically, a bunch of people with ASICs get together and they all work on mining. If any of them finds a block, they share the block rewards with everybody. Now, this was done with a protocol called Datum, and with Datum, it gave the pool owner a great deal of control over what was being mined. So basically, whenever you're mining, you have to say which transactions are going to be in the block that you're mining. With Datum, the pool chose the transactions, and the miners just mined whatever the pool told them to mine. So they really didn't have any freedom of choosing their own transactions or excluding transactions, etc. That, of course, creates a centralization problem where you have a single point of failure. With large mining pools, government could force them to censor transactions and so on. Version 2 of Datum addressed that problem a bit. What they did in Datum 2 is they allowed the miners to construct their own templates and then request from the pool if those were acceptable templates, if the pool would let them mine the template that they came up with. And by template, I mean like the structure of the transactions in the block. But that's still centralized because the pool could say, hey, no, I don't like your templates, try something else, right? And then there was also a default, so the pool would always, and most people would just use the default anyway, so the pool would say, here's the default template. So Datum actually solves the centralization problem much better. What it does is it says the pool is not in charge of constructing the templates. The people who are mining must construct the templates. There's no default template. It's completely permissionless. You don't ask permission to use a particular template. You can include whatever transactions you want in whatever block you're mining. And with Datum, the only thing the pool is doing is making sure that it's tracking everybody's work and then making sure that they all get their fair share whenever one of them finds a block. Right now, only Ocean mining pool supports Datum. But they're a great pool because from a pool perspective, they're really focused on decentralization. They never hold the block rewards at all. As soon as the block rewards are mined, the Coinbase transaction is used to distribute to all the miners. And additionally, they also support Lightning payouts. So if you have a small amount of hashing power, you don't want to get very small UTXOs every time a block is found. It's better to get those small amounts over Lightning, accumulate over time, and then whenever you've accumulated enough, then you can convert it. You can basically close your channel or send it off send off a Lightning payment to swap in bolts or something to get it into your cold storage. So that's what we're going to be setting up today. Now, mining at home might seem like it is very complex, but actually if you're running a node, a Start9 node, it's actually quite easy, and it's not very expensive to get involved. I would suggest this device here is from Canaan. It's called the Avalon Nano 3. If we go to their website, www.canaan.io, and you go to Avalon Nano, you can see this particular device is about $99. You're probably going to want to get it with the power supply though, because it's got a special power supply It has quite a bit of watts on that. It's a USB-C, but it's quite a bit of watts. If you don't have enough watts on your power supply, it's not going to mine at full speed. So it's about $130 to get the miner with the power supply. And this one will mine about 4 terahash per second, which is not a lot, but it's efficient. And the other good thing about this is it's dual purpose as a heater. So you can heat a small room, or just have it as a personal heater on your desk, for example, in the cold weather. So the excess heat that it's producing while it's mining Bitcoin, you can actually use, to keep yourself warm as a secondary use. Another option you can go with is BitAxe, and they have these knockoffs of BitAxe, like this one here is called Lucky Miner. You can get these for about $70 on Alibaba. Depending on what chip you have and the one that you buy, these will usually mine about probably 700 gigahash per second, which that's quite a bit less than the Avalon. So you're probably about half the price, but you're getting quite a bit less hash rate on one of these. So I would definitely suggest the Avalon Nano 3. But either of these will work. And setting them up is pretty similar. So once you have an ASIC, the other thing you need to have is a Start9 server. Now you could go to Start9, the store on Start9, and get like the server 1 or the server pure. But the operating system is actually free to download and install on pretty much any device. Today I've just got one of these ThinkCenter Lenovo mini PCs. The one I'm installing, it just has 4 gigabytes of RAM, so it's a pretty low-end device, but that particular device I got for $35. So if you add the SSD, this has a 1 terabyte SSD in it, it's about $50. So $85, $90 for probably the lowest end. I also, if you look at my previous tutorial, I have a video on building a device that's equivalent to the Start9 server pure with half the price. So check that out if you want to save a little money. But Start9, pretty much whatever your budget is, you can run a server pretty easily. Okay, so let's get started on what we need to do. The first thing we need to do is on StartOS on your server, we need to install Bitcoin Knots. And where you can find Bitcoin Knots is in the marketplace. Now, if you go to the marketplace, you can see that it starts out on the official Start9 registry. Bitcoin Knots is not on this registry yet, but it is on the community registry. So we're going to change over to the community registry. And here we're going to search for Knots. And there it is, Bitcoin Knots. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install that. Now, if you go on Start9, if you've already got Bitcoin Core installed, you can replace it with Bitcoin Knots. You need Bitcoin Knots for Datum to work because it gives you a lot more control over what goes into your templates. So if you already have Bitcoin Core, I'll post a link to this, but basically the process is you have to go into the System tab, hit Manage 5 times to enable developer mode, then click Reinstall Knots in the community registry. It'll give you a notification to say the install failed, but it didn't. You just need to open Knots config and then hit save. So this is just the process if you have Bitcoin Core and you need to switch to Bitcoin Knots in order to start using Datum. Okay. So once you have Bitcoin Knots installed, you'll need to configure it. I usually leave the configuration pretty much as it is. It's set out of the box to filter out most of the spam, things like the ordinal inspections and or inscriptions and whatnot. One thing I do usually change though is there's this setting called Reject Tokens under Mempool. This rejects the runes, which I think is also I consider that spam. So I go ahead and enable that. So I'd recommend enabling that. Otherwise, just use, you know, sort of the out-of-the-box settings. You can look through here and kind of see if there's anything else you want to change, but this is going to filter out most of the spam if you have the default settings and you have the reject tokens enabled. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit save. Okay, so once you've configured and you've saved, all you got to do now is hit start, and this will now do the initial blockchain download. And depending on the speed of your server, that'll take a while. Like on this particular machine, it probably takes about 4 to 6 weeks on one of these Lenovo mini PCs. The more RAM you have, the faster it's going to go. If you do, like on my previous video, if you do the minutes form, like on my previous tutorial, it'll take a little over a day, I think, to do maybe it's about a day somewhere. So it depends also on your network speed and whatnot, but it takes around a day on good hardware, but on a lower end hardware, it's going to take you a few weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and I'll fast forward over this part so that we can see what happens next. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is you need to set up SSH on your Start9 server. And that's going to be needed later for a step whenever we're setting up Datum to be able to connect your ASIC to it. Now, this step won't be necessary whenever I believe it's 3.6, I believe is the version. Let me see, current version, yeah. So current version is 0.3.5-1. Whenever 0.3.6 comes out, this step won't be necessary. So if you're watching this video and 0.3.6 or later is out, then you can skip setting up SSH. But if you're still on 0.3.5, then you need to set up SSH. All right, so the instructions for how to do that is over on Start9, docs.start9.com. And then the user manual over on the left, we got using SSH is the article. So we're going to go through this documentation. It says open up a terminal and enter the following command. So on Windows, the terminal is called PowerShell. So we're going to open up PowerShell. Okay, it says SSH keygen -t ed 25519. Okay. SSH keygen -t ed 25519. Okay, so I'm going to run that. It says file you want to save the key. We'll just use the default, so I'm going to press enter. You can enter a passphrase if you want to protect your key so no one can use it if they happen to get a copy of it unless they know the password. For now, I'm just going to leave it blank for this demo. So I'm just going to hit enter. Hit enter again. Okay, so now it's generated the key. It'll tell you where the key has been saved. Take note of its path. Okay. So now we're going to start the system. Okay, so there's this note right here, right after the passphrase steps. If you're on Windows, which I am, the next 3 steps only apply to Linux and Mac OS. If you're on Windows, please skip down to registering an SSH key. So I'm going to go ahead and skip these. If you're on Linux or Mac OS, you need to follow these additional steps here that are mentioned. But since we're on Windows, we're going to go straight down to registering an SSH key. Okay. So it says in the StartOS dashboard, navigate to System SSH. Okay, so we're going to go do that. System SSH. Okay. Then we need to click Add a new key. Okay, so we're going to do Add a new key. Okay, so back in the terminal, you want to display a copy of your SSH public key. Okay, so on Windows, so it shows what commands to do on the different operating systems. On Windows, this is the command we want here, so let's copy this. Type .ssh/id ed25519.pub. All right, so that gives me this text here, which I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Okay. In PowerShell, if you right-click on what you've selected, that puts it into the clipboard. So now we have the public key copied into the clipboard. Okay, and then we need to paste that into the Add New Key text field. All right, paste that into here and submit. Okay, so now our key is on here. That will allow us to SSH into our server. Okay, so now we're going to test it out. The name of my server is aquajail.local, so we're going to copy that. It says SSH Start9 at server, the server name, which is what we got here. I just copied. So SSH Start9 at, and then on PowerShell, if we right click on the window, it'll paste from the clipboard. So SSH Start9 at aquajail.local. It says, do you want to continue connecting? Yes. And we are connected. Okay, so we have SSH installed, and we're going to need that later. We don't need, for now, I'm just going to go ahead and exit. Okay. All right, and I'll come back here, and I'll just wait for the initial blockchain download to complete. Okay, once Bitcoin Knots shows that it is synced, then the next thing you need to add is Core Lightning. For that, you can go to the marketplace. We need to change from the community registry back to the original Start9 registry, and then we'll look for Core Lightning, which you can see here. Now, you may be running LND instead of Core Lightning. That's fine. You can run both LND and Core Lightning, but you do need Core Lightning in order to receive your payouts from Ocean. So go ahead and install Core Lightning if you don't have it installed already. Okay, we'll wait for that to install here. Okay, so now that Core Lightning is installed, we need to configure it. So we'll click on the Core Lightning service, and then we'll click on Configure. You can leave the settings as default. A couple things you might want to change if you want to make your node visible for people to browse and see. You might want to give it an alias. If you leave that blank, Start9 will just create a random alias for your node. And you may want to also change the color. It by default is the Bitcoin orange. So if you can look up like a hex color editor, you can come up with different codes to put in there for different colors. And that's the color your node will appear on any software that depicts your node as a color. But you can just leave these as default, and you'll get a random name, and your node will be orange. So we'll go ahead and hit save. Okay, so now that we've configured it, we can go ahead and start it. And then we just have to wait for the health checks to complete. Okay, you can see all of the health checks are successful. So now we're going to go ahead and launch the UI. Okay, it's going to ask for your password. You can get that back over in the Core Lightning service on Start9. You can click on Config, and then just go to the UI password field and copy that value. And then we'll paste that into the password field here. And click Login. Okay, so when you first log into Core Lightning, you'll have no balance. You can see that Core Lightning consists of essentially three main panels. You've got the Bitcoin wallet. This is your Bitcoin on the base layer they can use to fund channels. You have the Lightning wallet, which is the Bitcoin that is locked up in channels. And then payment channels just shows you the channels that have been opened. Now to receive payouts from Ocean, we need to have a channel, but we can't open a channel until we first deposit some Bitcoin into our Bitcoin wallet. And then once that settles on the base layer, it has to confirm. I believe it has to confirm a couple of times before it'll show up here. Once it's confirmed, then we can use the Bitcoin in that wallet to open a channel. So let's go ahead and deposit some Bitcoin. Deposit. And then this is the Bitcoin address that we need to deposit to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that to the clipboard. Okay, so now that I've sent the Bitcoin, I just have to wait for it to confirm. Okay, so our balance is shown up in the in our wallet. So next we need to open a channel. So for opening a channel, you can browse the channels on a website called 1ml.com. In this demo, so there's some good nodes to connect to. You want to connect to something that has a lot of that itself has a lot of connections. So voltage is a good one. Another for voltage, you need to have I believe a minimum of a million satoshis. Another good one is Wallet of Satoshi. All right. Now a lot of folks have nodes that all look very similar, but you can tell the real ones because they have a lot hard. You can tell the real ones because they have a high channel count. So, for example, this Wallet of Satoshi 1, this just has 3 channels, whereas Wallet of Satoshi.com has 1,484. So you can tell this is the real one. So if you're connecting to this node, I believe you need a minimum of 5 million Satoshis. If you're mining with a small miner like the Avalon Nano 3, you're not going to need a very large channel. And so opening a channel with 1 million Satoshis might make sense, but you don't need necessarily that many. So if you just want to open a much smaller channel, you can open one with my node. It's called Paul's Code. If you search for that one. Okay, and I've got 2 nodes. One's called just Paul's Code. Another one's called Paul's Code LND. These you can connect to either of these, but the Paul's Code LND is just, I was experimenting with LND, so I've got a node there. This Paul's Code up here, this one's connected to Core Lightning. This one has a little bit more liquidity, so I'd suggest connecting to this one, but you can connect to either of these. They both are connected to at least one channel that's well connected out. But this one up here is going to have a little more liquidity. So whichever one you decide to connect to, my nodes, you just need a minimum of 10,000 Satoshis to connect. Plus you need a little bit left for emergency channel closure. So I believe 15,000 is the minimum, something around there, to open a channel. So if you want to open a channel with my node, you just click on it, or whichever node you're going to connect to, you just click on it. And then you can see right above the QR code, there's this text area. This has the public key and ID of your node. We need to copy that value and then come back over to Core Lightning, and we're going to click Open a Channel. We'll go ahead and paste in the value that we copied, and we're going to open up, in this case, 15,000 Satoshis. One thing I don't like on Windows, I've noticed that the application, it kind of hangs off the bottom of the page. You can't really see. I believe if I zoom out, I can see this better. Yeah, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. There we go. Now we can see all the buttons and stuff. see, do one more just to make sure we can see it good. There we go. All right, so I've got my button visible here. So put the node ID that you copied from 1ML, you put the amount that you want to open your channel for, and then you just click Open Channel. Okay, so the channel is open. All right. Now you can go ahead and close the Open Channel dialog here. And now we can see that the channel is pending. So it needs to have at least 3 confirmations before the channel will become active. So you can see up here at the top where it shows all your summary information. We have 1 peer, which means we're connected to the Pulse Code node, but we have 0 active channels. So this channel, we need to wait for the transaction that opened the channel. We need that to get included in a block. And then after it's included in a block, we need 2 more additional confirmations before this channel will become active. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to happen, and we'll come back whenever it's ready. Okay, so now that we've got enough confirmations, our channel's open. You can see up in the top here, it now says we have 1 active channel. Okay, so now that we have our channel active, we need to create some inbound liquidity so that we can receive our payouts from Ocean Mining Pool. To do that, we just need to send the sats over Lightning. It can send probably up to 10,000. And then that'll create inbound liquidity. Now, if you opened your channel up with a lot of Satoshis, say you opened up with a wallet of Satoshi with 5 million, for example, you probably want to send most of that back to cold storage via the Bolts exchange. So if you were doing that, you just go to Bolts. I think it's .exchange. Yeah, Bolts.exchange. And then you'd be converting from Lightning to Bitcoin. You would just put however much you want to do. Say you wanted to do, 4,500,000 as an example. You could probably send even more than that. If it just depends on how much outbound liquidity you want to leave in your channel. And then you would just put your Bitcoin address for your cold storage in here, and then you would there'd be a button to create the swap. So, and then that would give you a Lightning invoice that you could then come over to here, and you would hit send, and you would paste that invoice in there. Okay. In this case, I can't use Bolts because the minimum swap, I believe, is 50,000. Yeah, minimum is 50,000. So, and that the amount I have in here anyway is really of small UTXO, so I really wouldn't want to be holding on to that UTXO. I'd want to accumulate more before I can save it to the base layer. So in my case, I'm just going to send this over to another wallet. Okay, so now that I have my invoice, I'm going to go ahead and send some sats over to there. Okay, payment is successful. Okay, so now that we've got Core Lightning set up and we've got an active node with some inbound liquidity to receive our payouts on, next thing we need to do is actually set up Datum. So for that, first of all, we're going to need to install Datum. So we go to the marketplace. Datum is on the community marketplace, so you'll have to change, if you're on the official Start9 registry, you're going to have to change to the community marketplace. All right, switched over to community registry. Now here we're going to search for Datum. Okay, and Datum Gateway is the name of the service. So we'll go ahead and install that. Okay, so Datum is installed, and now we need to do the configuration. So we'll go ahead and hit configure. You can see that it's asking us to fill in some mining settings. Let's go do that. and it needs a Bitcoin address. Okay. Now the Bitcoin address, what that is that's how you identify yourself on Ocean. So Ocean is permissionless and pseudonymous. So the only way Ocean knows about you is your Bitcoin address. So that's how Ocean refers to you. And also the Bitcoin address that you use, you need to prove that you own it by signing a message. And that's how Ocean knows that you do indeed own that Bitcoin address whenever you give it a Lightning invoice, which our Lightning offer, which I'll show in a little bit. So we need to put a Bitcoin address in here, one that we control the keys to. Okay, and that's going to be our identity on Ocean Mining Pool. For that, I'm going to go ahead and use a Sparrow wallet. You can use whatever wallet you. It doesn't really matter what wallet you're using. You just need to generate a Bitcoin address. So I'm going to go ahead and hit receive. And here's my Bitcoin address. I'm going to go ahead and save that onto my USB drive so that I can remember it later. Okay, that's our Bitcoin address that we're going to be used to identify ourselves. Okay, so now we have that Bitcoin address. We're going to go ahead and paste it into here. In this case, I'm just using a hot wallet. Obviously, you can hook up a hardware signer and you can use it to sign the message as well, which I'll show you in a bit. But in this case, I'm just using a hot wallet and I'll be signing it with Sparrow using the hot wallet keys. But the process will work the same if you're using a hardware signer. Okay, so now we have our Bitcoin address in there. We have two other things that you can change. I would recommend changing them. One is called the primary Coinbase tag. So if you're mining solo and you find a block, if you're super lucky, this is the name that'll show up on the block. So in this case, I'm just going to put Paul's code. That's how I want, whenever someone's exploring the blockchain, they'll see that that block was mined by Paul's code. Now the secondary Coinbase tag, you can use the same thing for it as well if you want, or you can use something else. But this also shows up on the block, but if you're mining for the Datum pool, for the Ocean pool. So Ocean will be the pool on the primary Coinbase tag, and then secondary Coinbase tag will show that you are the one who mined it. So that's where this tag will come from. So in my case, I'm just putting Paul's code in both, but they don't necessarily have to be the same. I'm going to leave everything else with the defaults. You can look through here, and one good thing about Start9 is they have a little question mark in front of everything. So you can sort of read what the different things are. Can go through, do some searching online if there's something you're curious about. But for this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and leave everything as default. And basically, the transactions that are going to go into my blocks that I'm mining are defined by Bitcoin knots. So remember earlier, I filtered out a bunch of spam. So when I'm working on creating a block template, I'm not going to be including any spam in my blocks. So that's sort of the goal of decentralized mining, is to allow people to decide what they want to mine and what they don't want to mine. So in my case, I don't want to mine any of the spam. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save on the configuration. Okay, one other thing that you're going to need is there's a configuration on Bitcoin knots that basically points Bitcoin knots back to Datum. So Datum needs to know about Bitcoin knots to connect to the Bitcoin RPC. But Bitcoin knots also needs to have a callback back to Datum, and that needs to be configured. Start9 makes this easy. They have an auto config option, so we'll go ahead and click that. It says it's going to add the following into the settings on Bitcoin knots: advanced, block notify, and it's going to be putting this into there. So to accept those changes, hit save. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. All right, and so now our configuration is complete. One thing you can go do if you want to make sure that that setting applied, you can go over to Bitcoin Knots and we can go to Config, Advanced, and Block Notify. This is the one that it mentioned updating, and you can see that it has updated. So basically, it's going to call back to Datum right here. You can see. All right, so I'm not going to change that, but I'm just double checking that it actually made the change that it mentioned it did. All right, so Bitcoin Knots is now stopped. So let me go ahead and stop Core Lightning as well. And then I will start back up Bitcoin Knots now that the configuration has changed. And then we'll wait for the health checks to complete here. Okay, now that the health checks are successful, we're going to go and start Core Lightning back up. And we'll wait for the health checks to complete. Okay, now that we've got Bitcoin Knots and Core Lightning running, we're going to go to Datum Gateway and we're going to start it. And the first time you run this will get into a boot loop. If we go to the logs, you can see what's going on here. It's saying the block notify field is null. Now, we just verified that the block notify field is not null. But when you run Datum Gateway the first time, it shows that. It seems to be a bug in their service. The only way to fix that is we have to go to Actions and uninstall. Okay, after we've run it the first time, we have to go to Actions, uninstall. Then we gotta go back to the marketplace and reinstall it. Okay, and unfortunately I have to reconfigure it. So I should have mentioned earlier to take note of the things that you change because you're going to have to change them again. In my case, all I did is I added the Bitcoin address and I changed the Coinbase tags. So I'll go ahead and do that again. Okay, there's the Bitcoin address we're going to use. And I wanted my tags to be Paul's code. All right, now we hit save. Okay. Now, this is important on version, on StartOS version 0.3.5-1. So that's the current version at the time of this video. There's a step that you need to do. Remember earlier I talked about adding SSH. That's so that we can do this next step. If you're at 0.3.6 or later, then this step will not be necessary. But as of now, it is required. And what you want to do for this step is you need to shut down all of your services. So we're going to go ahead and stop Core Lightning. And we're going to stop Bitcoin Knots. Okay, and then we're going to go to Datum Gateway. And then right here at the top in the menu is Instructions. So we're going to click on that. All right. Now it goes through and it talks about what I just said, how in version 0.3.5, we need to make the servers available over the IP and port. If you don't want to go through these steps, you can wait for 0.3.6. Then you won't have to do this step. It's fairly easy. I'll show you how to do it though. And you can decide whether this is too technical for you or if you want to go this route. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the section called Installing and Running SimpleProxy. Okay. So first you need to SSH into your Start9 server. Okay, so for that, we're going to go to Windows PowerShell, like we did earlier. And we're going to do SSH Start9 at aqua jail.local. Now, I showed earlier, but I just want to make the point again. Make sure that you've shut down all of your services before you do this step, because it's going to restart the server. Especially if you have a lower end device like I have here. If you try to do too much at once, it's potentially going to crash. Now, if you've got a top of the line device, you probably don't have to worry about shutting everything down. I'm a little bit obsessive compulsive about that sort of thing, so I usually shut everything down anyway. But certainly on a low end device where you got only 4 gigabytes of RAM, like I do here, you're going to want to shut down all your services before you do this step. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and enter that command, and now we are SSH'd into the server. And now we're going to run a few commands that we have here. So it says copy and paste the following lines one by one. So this is the first line here. Copy, paste. So in PowerShell, whenever you right click in the window, it pastes. So you just right click to paste and then we hit enter. Okay. Then we're going to grab the next line. Make sure you don't miss any characters. Just grab the text. Don't grab an extra line or anything like that. You want to grab just the text for that line. And we'll run that command. Okay, that one's completed. I'm going to run the next command. This one will actually install SimpleProxy. Okay, now every time I've done this, I get this error. It says can't write to log. That doesn't cause any problems. So when you see that, don't worry about that. You just ignore that error. Then we're going to run this next line here. This one's a big one. So just grab from the beginning of the word echo all the way down through to where it says datum.service. So that's all one line. It's just word wrapped. That's why it looks like multiple lines. This is all one line, one command that we're running here. Anyway, so let's go ahead and paste that in. Okay. Next, copy and paste following line. Okay, we're going to go ahead and run this next line. Okay, that enables the new service. So basically what we've done here is we've created a service called SimpleProxy. It's not going to show up in the services in the main menu. This is running in the background. But what this line does, it enables that service so that whenever we restart our server, that SimpleProxy service will be running. Okay, last thing we do is exit, and that's going to restart our server. System will reboot, it says. Refresh and see if we're reconnected. Okay, yes we are. All right, so now that we've entered those commands that were mentioned in the instructions, I'll show you where that is again. Click on Datum Gateway. We go down to Menu and we click on Instructions, and the instructions are in here. Specifically what we followed was down here near the bottom, section called Installing and Running SimpleProxy. I do recommend reading through the rest of these instructions. A lot of useful information in here about how to connect your miners and so on. And we'll refer back to this as well. But the part that I just completed was this part right down here, installing and running SimpleProxy. Okay. All right. So now that we've rebooted, we need to start up our services again. And I'm going to make sure the health checks are good on each one before I move to the next one. So we start with Bitcoin Knots again. Wait for the health checks. Okay, health checks are good. Move on to Core Lightning. Let's start it up. And we'll wait for its health checks to complete. Okay, its health checks are good. And finally, we're going to start up Datum Gateway. And we'll wait for its health checks to complete. Okay, and it looks good. Okay, now that we have Datum set up, I'm going to next set up our ASIC. For this demo, I'm using the Avalon Nano 3. If you have a different ASIC, you'll have to look at your instructions for how to set it up. For the Nano 3, a screen at the top when you first start it up is going to show an IP address that you can connect to it from, and it's also going to show on the next screen, we have to wait for it a little bit, on the next screen it's going to show a network that we need to connect to. Okay, so here it is. It says, please connect to heater Nano 4A 5C. Yours will probably have different numbers at the end, but basically I want to connect to that network in order to configure the ASIC. I'm just going to connect it to the same network that my server's on. Okay, now that I've got it connected to the same network, I'm going to look and see what IP address it is, and so that I can load it up in the browser to config. Okay. Okay. So now that I'm logged in, I can go ahead and edit the configuration. Okay, so for the pool address, we can go over to StartOS and the Datum Gateway instructions. And it says, point your miners to the IP import of your Start9 server. Okay, so where we can get the Start9 server's IP address is over on System, and then we can hit About. Okay, so IPv4 is down here, EN01. We're going to grab that IP address. That's the IP address of our Start9 server. And we'll go back and we'll put that IP address into the IP part of the Stratum address. Okay, so your ASIC is going to connect to Datum via the Stratum protocol. So that allows you to not have to have special hardware on your, or special firmware on your ASIC. It can connect the way it's used to connecting, but it's getting it, instead of getting its work from the pool for the templates, it's getting it from Datum. Okay, so we got over here in the instructions, let's go back to Datum Gateway. Okay, so for the port, the default is 23334. So we'll use that because I didn't change it. So 23334. Okay, that's good. All right. Basic information, mining them. Okay, setting up your miners. Okay, the first part needs to be stratum plus TCP : //. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. And I've already got that in there. But just looking at the instructions, it starts like this. It has your IP address, :23334. Okay. Then you have to create a worker. And so for the worker, you use your Bitcoin address. So let me go grab that. Okay. And then you can put at the end of it I don't know why I can't get to the end of this. Okay, there we go. We put a dot and then a worker name. So they gave you some examples here, like Bitcoin address, dot, bitax, whatever, right? So basically we just give our miner a name. I'm just going to call it Avalon. So it's going to do dot Avalon. Okay, so I have my Bitcoin address dot Avalon. That's the worker. And then for password, I just put a lowercase x. Okay, and it mentions that here. For your password, can be left blank. If your miner insists on having something there, you can write x. Okay, so I believe Avalon requires there to be something in there. A lot of these do. I haven't confirmed if Avalon does or not, but a lot of them do. So I just put an X in there since that's what it says you can use. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit save. Save successfully. It says you need to reboot your Avalon device. Okay. So to reboot, over here on the left is right here. There's an option called reboot. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. It says, are you sure you want to reboot? And we hit OK. So now the device is going to reboot. All right, so now I can log in again. All right. And we should begin mining here in a little bit once it starts up. All right, so we're starting to get a hash rate here. Okay, so now we're just going to let this mine for a while. And once some shares get into Ocean, then Ocean will create a page for us, and we can actually check if it's created it yet or not. So when we go to ocean.xyz, we click on dashboard, and we can hit my stats. It says you need to search for your username, so we'll go ahead and search for our Bitcoin address. Okay, and it's already showing up. I think that's because I've already, from when I prepared for this demo, I already set this up. So I've already mined a little bit on this address already. So that's cool. So anyway, once you search for your address, it'll show up in here. Next thing we need to do is so for the Lightning payouts, what you need to do is you need to go to Core Lightning, launch the UI, which is already launched here. Go ahead and refresh this, make sure it's loaded. Yeah, I still need to put the password in, so let me grab that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go to offers, and I need to zoom so I can see it. Okay, so click receive to generate a new offer. So I'm going to hit receive, going to hit offer. Okay, so it says we need to create a Bolt 12 offer. So Bolt 12 offer needs to meet the following criteria. The amount needs to be any. So in other words, we leave the amount blank. We need to put for the description, we need to put Ocean payouts for this. So we need to put that into there. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead. So we've got any, we've got this description exactly as it's written. And then we're going to hit generate offer. Okay, so that generates the offer. We're going to copy that to the clipboard. And we're going to go paste it into here. Whenever you do this first time, this won't have anything in it. So you'll paste this into here. We'll refresh the block height to make sure we got the current block on here, and we'll click generate. Okay. All right, and that gives us a message. We need to sign this message with our wallet in order to prove that we own that Bitcoin address. So we're going to copy this message to the clipboard, and we're going to go over to Sparrow, and in Tools, we're going to do Sign Verify Message. So we're going to click on that. Message goes in here, and you get the Bitcoin address to go in the address. And then we need to click Sign. Okay? That generates our signature. So we need to grab this signature, and then we can hop back over to Ocean and paste the signature here. And then we hit confirm. Okay, it says configuration is accepted. So now whenever we get our rewards, let's see, we go to my stats. Looks like next time we get a block, we're gonna have an estimated earnings of 87 sats. Okay, so when that happens, that's gonna come in over this channel here, and we'll see it show up down here in the transactions. Okay, so if the next block I had 87 sats, you'd basically see a 87 sat transaction show up here in the Lightning wallet, and our inbound liquidity will decrease a bit, and our outbound liquidity will increase a bit. So this yellow line will start moving up. When it starts getting close to the end, you can send some out like we did earlier to create some more room for more payouts to come in. Okay, that's basically it. We're now mining our own templates that we're generating with our Start9 server, and we're helping support Bitcoin mining decentralization. I'll see you in the next tutorial.